name is Tushar and you are watching Learn Everyday YouTube channel, and in this video we're going to learn how to create a two-dimensional array in Python language. Now generally, as you compare, if you have studied the C language or C++, Java, in those languages the declaration of the two-dimensional array is quite complex. You need to specify the size initially what you want to uh, build, or you have to declare it first. There are two ways generally, that is static declaration as well as the dynamic declaration, but in Python the implementation of a two-dimensional array is quite easy. Actually, in two-dimensional array what we use is basically the concept of list. In Python, array is not used by as such by the name array. We generally use list in Python. So first of all, before starting anything, what is a list? I'm going to tell you. It's very simple. We can declare a list. Suppose L is a list, and there is a syntax of a list. You need to put all the elements in square brackets in a list, and I want to declare a list of 3 elements. Let's say 5, 9 and 12. These are the 3 elements in a list. I press enter and this is a list. Now if I press L, I'm gonna find a list in my output. So this is a list, basically 5, 9 and 12. So all these are elements. We can also refer them as we generally used to in other languages, like we can refer them by index, and index always starts from 1 in 0 in the computer language. So the 5 element could be referred by L of 0. So if I press enter key, I would get 5 as an output. Similarly, I can display L of 2, it would be 12, and if I try to access any element that is not defined, or let's say 3, so it will give an error because index is out of range. So this is basically a list, and I'm not gonna tell you the basic functions of a list, but we're gonna move on to the topic directly. Now first of all, what's the difference between a list and a tuple? There is another data type in Python that is called tuple, and the main difference between a list and tuple is that a tuple is generally declared within a parenthesis. Like if I declare this t be a tuple like 9 and 12 and I print on t, now I want to find a tuple. Now what's the difference between the two? Generally list is mutable, that is we can generally change the elements of the list as desired. For example, if I wanna put that L of 0 is equal to 15, so it is possible. Now if I print my list, it would get 15, 9 and 12, but if I do the same with a tuple, I won't be able to. Let's try. L of t of 0 is equal to 15, so it would give an error that it doesn't support any assignment, so we cannot change the tuple as it is. So this is the main difference between a list and a tuple. Almost other operations are same, you can check on, but in this, now I'm going to tell you how to declare a two-dimensional array. Now what is a two-dimensional array is generally also a list. So let me declare an array. It's 2 to be a list or two-dimensional array. Now how to declare it? I have a list. This is a list. Now in this list I want to put another list that's called a nested list, like this. So if I put, this is a list 1 and 2, this is a list. Further, if I put on 4 comma 5, wait a second, I got an error. Yeah, if I put on 4 comma 5, then also this is a list. If I put on 6 comma 7, this is a list, right? So now I have a main list too, in which the elements are also list. So this is also known as nested list concept, or we can generally say this list as a two-dimensional array. So if I print on the 2 list, I will get this list. This is generally a nested list, or you can say it is a two-dimensional array. Now you will say that how it is a two-dimensional array. Generally, if I gonna print this, now how to print this for let's say I in 2. I gonna apply a loop for I in 2 and one more loop for j in or let's say, let me change that, not 2, I'm gonna in range of 2. So if I do this, range of length of 2, the length function will return the length of the array, that is actually 3 in our case. So this loop will run from 0 to 3, excluding 3, that is 0 to 2, that is 0, 1 and 2. So for these 3 values this loop will run, and for j in I'm gonna refer it to, for j in actually 2 is our main list, 2 and I. Now what to do is I'm gonna print the values of all these, print j, and I'm gonna put end equals to this, and I'm gonna explain what I'm doing. Wait a second please. Yeah, now if I run this I'll get a two-dimensional array. Wait a second, I'm gonna it's not moving up. Yeah, anyway, leave it as it is. So this is a two-dimensional array, right? Now what I did just is I applied a loop from range equals to 0 to 2, that is 0, 1 and 2. This is the index 0, this is index 2, this is index 3. Okay, so I applied a loop, and in this loop from the j loop I am accessing the each and every element, that is also a list. So for j in 2 I, it means for j in, j means 1 and 2, for j in 2i, 2 of 0, 2 of 0 is this one list, this list is our starting list, 2 of 0. So I am accessing each and every element of this list. So I'm gonna print this, and after printing I'm gonna move to the next line with this statement, and I'll get the output as a two-dimensional array. Okay, so this is how I declare a two-dimensional array. Now in this video what we're gonna do is I'm gonna explain you a way in which you can easily declare and define a two-dimensional array from the user directly using a concept of list comprehensions. Now what is the list comprehension? First of all, let me explain you first. List comprehension is generally a further enhancement in list that allows us to shorten our code. Okay, so we can generally minimize our code in one line. So how it generally works, here is syntax. Let me define LC as a list comprehension, and or I can directly write it as well, LC be a list comprehension. And in this list comprehension what I do is I need to this is also a list, so the journal syntax would be the same. This is a list, and in this list what I want to put in my list, let's say x, I want to insert x in my list. Now what is x? So for x I want to apply a loop for x in range 0 to 3. So what I have done now, I have made this loop for x equal to 0 to 3. So x value would range 0, 1 and 2. So these three values would be added in the list. So I would get an output as LC would be equals to 0 followed by 1 then 2. So this would be the output of our list. Where is it? 7 coming up. Yeah. So this would be the output of a list, and so in this way we can generally write down our code. So this concept is generally known as the list comprehension. So if I print on the list, if I print this or run this statement, I'll get 0, 1, 2 as an output. And you need to remember that list comprehension is nothing but also a list. And what is the notation for being in a list? That this square bracket, these two square brackets generally signify that the output would be a list. So it's generally a list, and in this list what I am doing, I have to put on x. Now what if I do this, x into x, that's square. So in output I would get 0, 1 and 4. Or if I change the numbers, let's say it is 2 to 6, that is the loop will run from 2 to 5. So in this case I will get the squares of the numbers 2, 3, 4 and 5 respectively. So this is the output as shown. So this is the concept of list comprehension. Now what my task is, I want to ask generally a list or generally a two-dimensional array from my user and put it into an array. This is what we do. So how to do this? It's quite simple. It's generally done by this statement I have written this side. This is the main statement that would do this for us. But before doing this, let me explain you one more function, that is the map function. Now what is the map function generally do is, it generally makes or generally uses a function. This is a function or simple function name you have to specify, and what list you need here, or any kind of a sequence you need to specify, as a list is also a sequence, so we can apply map on this. And it returns, what it returns, I can write here only, it returns a map object. Map object is returned, and we can easily convert this map object into a list, so we would get an output in the form of a list. So this is what the map function generally do. Now in this function, in our question, what we have to do is, we want to print an two-dimensional array of integers, integral values, right? So what we do is, our function name would be integer, that is what we will use, map. Integer is my function name. As we use these functions in Python, this is an integer function. Similarly, str is also a string function. So these are the functions that are being used. So I have to specify a function name that is integer. Don't be confused, it's not a data type, it's a function name. And the sequence would be our list, that is our list comprehension, that would be our list. Okay, so what this function will do, it will take each and every element from the list, that is list comprehension, that is also a list, and convert that into integer, and would return an exception if we put on an character value in the input, because character can't be converted into integers. So this is what the map function do. Now first, and there is the input function that is used to take the input, and we're gonna split this. Now what is this doing? Now let's say I entered 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 5, three values I entered. Now I want to individually access this, or want to put this into a list. What I want is, I generally want an output like this. So the input function generally takes the input as an string. Okay, so this is a string that we entered. This is a string that we generally entered via the input function, and I want to separate this, so I use the split function. Now what this split function do, it separates the values in the string on the basis of spaces. Wherever a space would be there, it would split those two value. For example, there is a space in between 2 and 3, so 2 and 3 are separated and they are put into a list as shown. And if I put any other character, let's say I put a hash symbol in between, so in this case I have to enter my input in the form of hash as well. So it should be in the form of hash, otherwise it won't be splitted. Okay, so this also would produce the same output. This is what the split function doing. And now we know what split function do, what map function do. And there is a list function. There are actually two ways to convert into a list. Either you can put these two square brackets, or you can use the list function as well to convert into the list. Okay, so these are two functions. so don't get confused. Now first of all, what we are doing is I want to ask some certain list. Okay, I want to ask, now what I want is in my output, this is a list in which I do have list 1, then I do have list 2, and similarly I do have a list 3 in it, and this is what I want in my output. Okay, so this is what I want in our output. That's fine. Now this kind of output would be generated like this. First I would ask list 1 from my user, and how would we do this? By the input function. Input function would ask us a string. For example, I want this 567, so 567 would be asked by the input, but I need to separate these also and put it into a list, so I will use the split function. So this would give us the output as this 5 and followed by 6 and followed by 7, but I want my output to be integral values, so I need to change all these values into integer. So for that we have a function called map function, so I gonna apply the map function, and map function takes two parameters, that is a list and a function. So my function is integer, and input dot split would give us this list. So this is a sequence and this is the integer. So after applying this, what I'll get in my output would be an integral list, that is 5, 6 and 7. So this would be my output after using this, but this would be in the form of a map object. I need to convert this into a list. This would be in the form of a map object, right? I need to convert it into a list. That's quite simple. Either I can do this, okay, yeah, either I can do this, this is also a list, or I can use the list function. How I can use the list function? I will put it into a parenthesis first like this, and then I'm gonna call the list function over it. So this will return me a list of this input. Fine, that is my output would be in the form of this. Now what I want this is my list 1. Let's say this is my list 1. I want to add this list 1 into my main list. So let's say my main list is list comprehension, and I want to add this into my list. So what I do is either I can do append for and list 1 if it is a single value, but I am not sure what the user may input, so I can't do the append function again and again, right? So for this we're gonna use the list comprehension. Now what the list comprehension do? It generally takes in the form of a list. Fine. What I have to put in my list, main list, is this list 1, list 2 and list 3. This is what I want to put in my main list. So how can I get this? By using this. So I'm gonna copy this, I'm gonna paste this here, and this is what I want to put into my list. And how many times? For I in range, let's say 3. It could be variable as well. So this loop would run for 3 times and would ask 3 inputs. Okay, so I need to enter 3 inputs for this, and this is what my list comprehension does. And I copy this, and I'm gonna print this here, and I'm gonna omit this, and gonna print LC after this. So you wanna see what generally I've, and yeah, this also. Fine. Now if I run this, it would ask me input for 3 times. This is my first list, this is my second list, and this is my third list. So this is, I have get a 2-dimensional array quite easily, right, using the concept of list comprehension. And you need to notice that we can input the array of any size. It is not compulsory, as in C language or in other languages what we have to do is generally, if you have to declare it. It could be a 3 cross 3 array, it could be a 2 cross 2 array, but it can't be like that. It could hold variable inputs. It is possible by using structure or classes in other languages, but in Python we can easily implement this using the concept of list comprehensions. Okay, so that's it for this video. I think it's already been too long. So if any doubts or anything you want to ask, you can please mention it in the comment section. And thanks for watching. If you like my video, please like and do subscribe my channel for future videos. And thanks, and do have a nice day.